Kings chapter 19. We're going to be talking about knowing God's will this morning. Knowing God's will. So we are in the book of 1 Kings chapter 19. And here, Elijah is coming off a really great victory over the prophets of Baal, over that wicked king Ahab and his wicked wife Jezebel. He defeated them big time. He embarrassed them. And the prophets of Baal, they were killed by an angry mob of people saying, "You lied to us, you deceived us, you tricked us. We will listen to Elijah. He is the man who tells us the truth." And Elijah had a great and wonderful victory. And Jezebel, when she found out her prophets were dead, that she was humiliated, she says, "Someone kill Elijah." Elijah had the backing of the people. He might have been able to walk into the palace and say, "I'm the king now," and people might have listened. But what did Elijah do? He said, "What? Jezebel wants me to be killed? Oh no, I better run and hide." And so he did. And then he started complaining. And he said, "God, I don't like this. People want to kill me. They're mad at me. Everybody hates me. Everyone is a Baal worshiper. I'm just going to go ahead and die. God, just go ahead and let me die." And then God said, "Well, let me teach you something, Elijah." And so God said, let's go ahead and pick it up verse number 4. 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 4. "But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a juniper tree. And he requested for himself that he might die, and said, 'It is enough now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am not better than my fathers.' And as he lay and slept under a juniper tree, behold, then an angel touched him and said unto him, 'Arise and eat.'" What did God do to Elijah? Did God say, "You want to die, you big baby, you big crybaby? Fine, you want me to die? Here comes Michael. Here comes the flaming sword. I'm going to kill you, you lousy, stinking, ungrateful prophet." Could God have done that? Yes. But God said, "You know what? You're my faithful servant." God says, "Elijah, I don't want to kill you." God says, "Elijah, I don't want for you to die." So what did God do? God says, "Rise up." He sent an angel. He said, "Elijah, you're just hungry." Right? You're just hungry. God sent an angel down there to wake up Elijah and say, "Arise and eat. Here, have some food." So one thing, Elijah says, "Okay, I need to know what is God's will." Well, just don't do it while you're hungry. Okay, that's the first lesson we can learn. Verse number 6. It says, "And he looked, and behold, there was a cake baken on the coals, and a cruse of water at his head. And he did eat and drink, and laid him down again." Guess what? He was hungry, and thirsty, and he was sleepy. So you know what God said? When you're feeling bad, and you're hungry, and you're thirsty, and you're tired, what should you do? Go eat. Go get something to drink. Go get a little bit of pink C2. Right? And then just go ahead and take a nice little sleep. Right? If you're hungry, and you're thirsty, and you're tired, well, don't decide that you want God to kill you right then, okay? If you wake up and you're not hungry, and you're not thirsty, and you're not sleepy, and you still want God to kill you, okay, maybe then you can ask God to kill you. But don't do it on an empty stomach. Verse 7. "And the angel of the Lord came again a second time and touched him, and said, 'Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for thee.' And he arose and did eat and drink, and went in the strength of that meat 40 days and 40 nights unto Horeb, the mount of God." So rather than God saying, "Elijah, I gave you this food and water, and all you did is go back to sleep. Now I'm really mad." God said, "Angel, go down there, wake him up again, give him some more food, give him some more water to drink." And the angel said, "Okay," and did it. Would God have been just? Would it be okay if God were to say, "You know what? You were being a big crybaby, feeling sorry for yourself. I gave you food. I gave you water, I let you rest some more, and what do? You just go back to sleep. And now you're hungry again, and you're thirsty again. Would it be wrong for God to say, I'm sorry, Elijah, but I'm going to find another key man? God would not have been wrong to do that, but God said, that's okay, Elijah. How about some more food? How about some more water? Are you rested? Is your tummy full? Did you get enough to drink, little baby? God said, okay, Elijah. First of all, in knowing God's will for your life, God does not want you dead. Okay? That is not God's will for you. You know how I know? Because you're still alive. God has a purpose for you. God has a plan for you. And you are going to find out what it is if you allow God the chance to let Him use your life. But if you say, oh God, I just want to die, just forget about me, I'm a nothing, I'm a nobody, I'm so full of sin, everybody always wants to worship Baal, and there's nothing that you can do with me, God, just let me die. First thing is, there's a plan. There's a purpose. So the message today is how to find that plan, how to find that purpose. So here, God had Elijah travel by foot for 40 days and 40 nights. I'm sure he slept during that time, and probably he ate, I don't know. Maybe he fasted that whole time, because it said on that food that he already ate, until he came to Mount Horeb. How many of you, after traveling for 40 days and 40 nights, you arrive at your destination, and oh goody goody, it's a mountain. After 40 days and 40 nights, I'm tired, and now God says, here's your destination. It's not a park, it's not a resort, it's a mountain. Oh, and guess what? Now you have to climb that mountain. This is the faithfulness of Elijah. God says, I know, Elijah, that you can do it. Alright, if there was a valley, I would just let you go down into the valley and swim in the river. But Elijah, I know that you can do it. So God says, now climb that mountain. Verse 9, and he came thither unto a cave, and lodged there, and behold, the word of the Lord came to him, and he said unto him, what doest thou here, Elijah? God says, okay, Elijah, now I've gotten to a place where I can communicate with you. Mount Horeb. And now, Elijah, where I've met with Moses in the past, now I'm going to meet with you. In other words, if you want to know what is God's will for your life, step 1, meet with God. Step 1, meet with God. That's M-E-E-T, not M-E-A-T, not food. Okay? Not let God, let's meet together, let's have food. No. You go and you meet with God. Now, that does not mean that God comes and meets with you. God did not say, okay, Elijah, I have something to tell you. Some good news, let's talk. Back when Elijah was depressed, God says, I'm not going to meet with you in this place. I'm not going to meet with you when you are having these thoughts in this condition. Elijah, I'm going to meet with you in the place that I have set. It's in a cave in Mount Horeb. I want you to travel 40 days and 40 nights and go climb that mountain, and there I will meet with you. So in other words, God is not going to meet with you while you are rolling around in your sin. God is not going to say, oh, you poor baby, you're depressed and you love your sin more than you love God. That's okay. I'll just accept your sin. God says, no, come, let's talk. But I'm not going to go to you. I'll help you get to me. I'll give you food and water and everything, but let's talk. Let's meet. You want to know what's God's will for your life? He's not going to show you unless you first meet with Him. Okay? So if you want God to meet with you, He's not going to show it in the sky. He's not going to have you wake up in the morning, open your eyes, and there in the sky is written in the clouds the will that God has for you. First, you need to go meet with Him. Guess what that means? You need to open up your Bibles. Guess what it means? You need to go do? Pray. Go to church. You need to go meet with God and not wait for God to come and to meet with you. In other words, if you want to know God's will, you need to be proactively seeking God's will. He's not going to show you His will if you are not willing to go and meet with Him. Elijah did not, and notice that God did not choose a place that was the least resistance, the easiest place. God chose a mountain, up a mountain, 40 days and 40 nights journey. So in other words, if you want to know God's will, you must be willing to pursue it, even though it's hard. So if God says, I want you to meet with me, the first step, you have to be willing to actively pursue that meeting with God. And also, think about this. If there is something that you know to do that is God's will, you know it. Okay? Like what we talked about this morning in Sunday school. Something that is in your life that is unholy, and you know it's unholy. Should you bother trying to figure out what is God's will for your life? Don't bother. If you're not doing what you know is God's will, don't worry about what is not God's will, or what you don't know to be the will of God in your life. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you have a problem drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, and going to the nightclub. Okay? Do you think that you should be worried about what God wants you to take in college, what course He wants you to take? No. First stop smoking and drinking and going to the nightclub, and then you can worry about what course you want God to have for you to take. In other words, if you're completely ignoring and canceling out God, and you don't want to hear from God, and you've already blocked Him from your life, and you're living unholy, and you're dead in your trespass and your sin, don't worry about what God wants for your life. As far as the things that you don't know. Do what you know to do now, and then worry about what you don't know what you should do. Okay? So if you want to know what God's will is, first you've got to meet with God. Not with a cigarette in your hand. Alright? Not while listening to rock music. Go and meet with God with an open heart, proactively prepared to receive what God has for you. Step number 1, meet with God. Step number 2, watch for God. In other words, you go to the place where you need to go. And then what do? You watch and see what is going to happen. So step 1, meet with God. Step 2, watch for God. Verse number 10 says that he said, I have been very jealous for the Lord God of hosts. Those who might know, did Elijah just confess a good thing that he's been doing? Or Elijah just confessed a sin that he was doing? Good or sin? Good thing. He was being jealous. That is a good thing. It's not a sin. It's a good thing. Envy is a sin. Jealousy is good. Let's not get sidetracked. And he said, I have been very jealous for the Lord God of hosts, for the children of Israel have forsaken thy covenant, thrown down thine altars, and slain thy prophets with the sword. And I, even I only, which was a lie, am left, which was a lie, and they seek my life to take it away. So God says, Elijah, now that you're here in the cave, what are you doing here? Elijah, what is your problem? What are you doing here, Elijah? You know better than this. You're better than this, Elijah. You know that you're not supposed to say, woe is me, take my life, get depressed. God says, you're better than this. So now Elijah is meeting with God. Verse 11, and he said, go forth and stand upon the mountain before the Lord. And behold, the Lord passed by. And a great and strong wind rent the mountains, and brake in pieces the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake was a fire. But the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a still, small voice. Elijah went to go meet with God. And step 2 was to watch for God. Elijah was in sin, but still knew deep down that God was his friend. God, today, if you're a believer, God can be your friend too. All of us have friends. How many of you, with a show of hands, would like to have your best friend killed? No, that would not be your best friend. God doesn't want his friend Elijah to die either and to suffer. God has a plan, a purpose for his life. So Elijah went to go meet with his friend God. When you need a hand, you don't call someone you expect to tell you no. You call someone you expect will tell you yes. Our prayer closet ought to be a place of expectation. So in other words, Elijah came there, he met with God, and he watched for God. When you go and you want to know God's will for your life, you go and meet with God like what we talked about, and then you watch for God to reveal himself to you through his word. If you are not willing to open up to his word and watch for something as a way for God to speak to you, then you've missed it. You are not truly meeting with God unless you come with an expectation. You know, that's the same way with knowing God's will as it is when you come to church. When you came to church this morning, there was, I'm sure, some sort of expectation. Otherwise, you would not be here. You would not come. You came with an expectation. Your expectation is that you would receive something from God. Probably in Tagalog. So sorry, not all of your expectations will be met this morning. I'm sorry for there will be some disappointment. But I hope that you have an expectation that you would receive something from God to help you with your life. So that you might be able to know what is the will of God for your life. When you meet with God the same way as when you come to church. You come to church with expectations. And your pastor wants to meet those expectations. He wants to make sure the music is right. And he wants to make sure that his preaching is right. And he wants to make sure that your needs and your expectations are being fulfilled. We ought to have the same expectation from God when we come to him and meet with him daily in our devotions. We ought to come and say, God, what is your will for my life? And we ought to come with an expectation. When God passes by, make sure that you are there watching, unless he would pass you by and you never saw it. Do you remember when Jesus walked on the water? Remember that miracle? And those in the boat saw Jesus, and it says they cried out to him lest he passed them by. In other words, Jesus was going to walk right past that boat and completely ignore them in that storm. Does that mean Jesus was going to allow them to die in that storm? No. God had a plan for them. They were not going to die. But if they did not cry out to Jesus, he would have kept on going. And they would not know that they would survive the storm until the storm was already past. Here's my point. If you go and you meet with God and you expect something from God, you need to be looking for God. Otherwise, it's going to pass you right by. You're going to miss it. You need to come and say, God, I don't want you to pass by. I want you to help me with the storm. If you come and you meet with him and you watch for him, he will not pass you by. But you need to be watching. Step 3. How to know God's will. 1, you need to come and meet him. Step number 2, you need to be coming and you need to watch for God. Step number 3, Ignore the circumstances. Ignore the circumstances. Don't be fooled by the wind and the earthquake, the noise and the shaking and the fire and the heat and the battle and the dust. Don't be distracted by that. Ignore it. Look for God through, or see right through those circumstances. When Elijah walked for 40 days and 40 nights, what was he walking towards? Or who was he walking towards? He was walking towards God. And he got in that cave in Mount Horeb. And then it says in verse number 11, it says, a great wind, a strong wind rent the mountains and brake in pieces the rocks before the Lord, but the Lord was not in the wind. There will be storms and wind in your life that are so strong and so furious that they will break and smash in pieces the rocks around you. In other words, there are things that God is going to break apart right in front of your very own eyes. A couple of days ago, I was on my way to hand out tracts in the morning. I got on the jeepney, and there was a woman in the middle of Carino Highway, in the middle of the road, and she was screaming, completely crazy, screaming, a young lady, maybe her late 20s, and she was screaming, and I couldn't see very well because I was in the jeepney, but what I could see was she was taking her fist, and she was banging a motorcycle and screaming and wailing out. She didn't care that she was in the middle of the highway. She was striking that motorcycle. And there was a little bit of, chitter chatter on the jeepney, and they were saying that someone said, I think she had a small child or a baby that fell off and was smashed on the road just now. Just happened. That's why she was going crazy and striking the motorcycle. So I don't know if that's exactly what happened, but I think that's what happened. I think she had a baby or a child, and the baby fell to the road and was hurt or killed. And then later in that evening, I had a Bible study. This was on Thursday. And I went to one of the people that was going to come to the Bible study. And they said that just earlier in the day, that their nephew or niece had an accident and their baby was killed. I don't know if it was that same baby or not. But the point is that there's going to be storms. Like this woman was suffering before her very eyes to watch your own child die right before your eyes. And just seconds ago, the baby was fine, and then within seconds, your love, your investment, your time is snuffed out. It's like the wind taking up a rock and just break it into a bunch of pieces. Your very life broken before you. There's going to be some storms. There's going to be some very difficult circumstances. Ignore it. Pursue God. In other words, by ignore it, I mean don't let those circumstances determine what is God's will for your life. Let's say that someone here, it's their will that they will be called of God. Okay, that they will go full time for God. But then their mommy says, well, I don't want that for you, sweetheart. I want something else. And if you do that, sweetheart, I'm not going to give you your play money anymore. That means you won't get to play computer games anymore. Wow, that's quite a storm, not being able to play computer games. And then mommy says, and you know what, sweetheart? I'm not going to do your laundry and cook for you, and I'm not going to let you have your cell phone anymore. I'm going to take it away from you, little baby. Woo! Well, that's a furious storm. How terrible the circumstances. Ignore it. See through it. And say, God has something for me on the other side of this storm. There can be the wind picking up the rocks and smashing them, and there can be an earthquake, and there can be fire. Be able to see through it. Is it going to be easy? No. It's not going to be easy. Is it supposed to be easy? No. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that God's will is going to be easy. But it does say that His burden is going to be light. In other words, the will that God has for you, you will be able to do it. You will be able to handle it. So first, you need to meet with God. Then you need to watch for God. And then you need to ignore the circumstances. You need to be able to see through the storm. When Elijah saw the fire, when Elijah felt the earthquake, when Elijah heard and felt the wind and saw the rocks being driven by the wind and blasted into a bunch of pieces, Elijah did not run down the mountain and then start running back home for 40 days and 40 nights. If you want to meet with God, if you want to know God's will, you need to be serious about it. And you need to be able to say, yes, God, if it means some bad news for me, I'm going to look through that bad news and I will pursue God in spite of those things that would hold me back. So you need to ignore the circumstances, come and expecting that God will meet with you. God can and sometimes does man Himself in circumstances, but not always and not usually. If God needs to use circumstances for you to know God, for you to know His will, that means He's not really been able to get a hold of you. It's like, if I want to get a hold of someone, I would say, right? You do that in the Philippines. Right? You start out doing that. If that doesn't work, then you go. If that doesn't work, then you go. I've seen that too. Right? You do them like that. And if that doesn't work, you say, Roy, oi, oi. Right? And then if that doesn't work, you go like this. You go, boy! And if that doesn't work, you go there and the person and you pat them on the shoulder. If that doesn't work, you pat them on the shoulder. If that doesn't work, you smack them on the shoulder. If that doesn't work, you shake them. Right? And if that still doesn't work, you spin them around and you smack them across the face. Like that, right? I'm trying to get a hold of you. I'm trying to get your attention. Right? So that's like God using the circumstances. That's what God's doing to you. He's shaking you and says, I'm trying to tell you something. I don't want you to die. I don't want to kill you. I have a plan for you. I need to get a hold of you. God's shaking you by using circumstances. Okay? If God has to, He will. But don't let circumstances dictate your life. That's just God shaking you, trying to tell you something through His Word. When God told Gideon, my will is for you to lead people, Gideon said, are you sure? Are you sure? God says, yes, I'm sure. And so Gideon threw out a fleece. And God went, okay, fine. God did not want Gideon to throw out that fleece. But God says, okay, Gideon, you're a little scared. I understand. Okay. And then the second night, Gideon throws out a fleece again. God says, okay, fine. I'll do it. But you're not honoring me by throwing out a fleece. If you want to know God's will for your life, do not throw out a fleece. Do not say, okay, God, make that airplane in the sky. I'm looking out to the sky. Make that airplane crash into the mountain, and then I will know it's your will I go to church this morning. Really? You're going to kill 300 people in an airplane so you know God's will? Yeah, make it happen. Make it happen. Okay? Don't use circumstances to find out what is God's will. You need to be able to see past the storm and see through it. Don't say, well, God, there's a storm there. I guess that means the door is closed. I guess that means that's not your will, because if I do that, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard. See past it. Meet with God. Watch for Him. Ignore the circumstances. And then step number 4. Pursue His Word. Pursue His Word. Where did Elijah find God's Word? Was it in the fire? Was it in the wind? Was it in the rocks? Was it in the earthquake? No, 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 and no. Where was God's word to be found? For Elijah, in this instance, it was in a still, small voice. Today, we're not Elijah. God does not speak to us in audible voices. But where are we going to find God's will? His word. Not through an audible voice, but through this word right here that I'm preaching out. Through His word. If you want to know God's will, you have to make sure you are looking for God's will in His word. So you need to be pursuing the voice of God. You're pursuing it in His word. Verse 12 says, and after the earthquake a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a still small voice. Is it, when you open up your Bible, do you ever see lightning just flashing out of it? Sometimes when you open your Bible, you ever see the movies, you open this really old, haunted, cursed book, and this big wind comes out, and ghost comes out, and flying out of the book? No. You open your book, and what sound does it make? Just a little bit of light rustling of the pages. Just a little bit of a stillness. When you come to God, and you pray, and you open up the Bible, what is it? It's just a still time with God. God doesn't show you His will through thunderings and lightnings and clouds of fire and pillars of clouds. That's not how He reveals His will. How He reveals His will to you is by you just opening up your word, His word, and being still and finding out what does God have to say from His word. So step 4 is to pursue His word, pursue God's word. And then step 5 is to be humble. If you are seeking after God and you want His will, and you're still now and you've opened up His word, you pursue God, you're meeting with God, you want to hear His voice, and then if there's any pride, if you bring something to the table, if you're bringing something to the table, then you're not going to be able to find out God's will. You have to be humble. And you have to accept whatever it is that God's will is for your life. If God says, I want for you to work in the sugarcane fields, and you're going to ride a carabao the rest of your life, then you need to say, so be it, God. It's not beneath me. That's okay for me, if that's what you want for me to do. If God says, I want you to be a yaya the rest of your life, okay, God. That's not beneath me. If that's God's will, then that's perfect. You can glorify God as much as being a yaya or a cook or a dishwasher as you can by being a great pastor or preacher or even, yes, evangelist. God has called others to do different things. And we can glorify God just the same by being faithful to His call. It doesn't matter the call. I glorify God by being a good evangelist just as much as you could glorify God by being a good cook. Your reward in heaven is no less or no greater than mine. It's the faithfulness to the calling. But if you're proud and say, no, God, this is my list of the things that is acceptable for your will in my life. If you come to God with a list of things that you're willing to do and a list of things that you are not willing to do, you have not truly come to God seeking to find out His will. It should be unconditional. There should be no conditions. You should say, yes, I will come, God, and I will accept whatever it is that you have for my life. In humility with no conditions. You need to be humble. Elijah wrapped his face in his mantle. Let's look at what he did. The reaction of Elijah. Verse number 13. And it was so, when Elijah heard it, that he wrapped his face in his mantle, and he went out and stood in the entering of the cave. And behold, there came a voice unto him, and said, What doest thou here, Elijah? Elijah took his clothes and he covered his face. You know why? Because he was ashamed. He heard that still small voice, and he was ashamed. And he covered his face before God. And God said, Elijah, what are you doing? Elijah, you know better than this. Elijah, you know you're not supposed to do this. Elijah, what are you doing here? Why are we having this meeting, Elijah? You know I love you and I have a plan and a purpose. Elijah, you know I don't want you to die. You know I don't want to kill you. Elijah, you're my friend. Look at the victory we had together on Mount Carmel. Think of those prophets that the people slew. Think of the frustration of Jezebel and her wicked husband Ahab. Look at the victory. Elijah, you know. You know. And Elijah covered his face. He humbled himself before God. You want God to speak to you? You want God to give you direction in your life? Humble yourself before God. Cover your face in shame. Bow yourself down before God and say, God, teach me. God, teach me I'm a fool. God, show me I'm a wicked fool. Make it so obvious that even someone like me, who is hard-headed and difficult to teach, make it so simple that even I could learn from you. That's what Elijah did. He wrapped his face. Whatever God tells us, we should take it with humility and be obedient. And the result should be a change in your desire. Look at Psalm chapter 37, verse 4. Let's close with Psalm chapter 37, verse 4. Psalm chapter 37, verse 4. It says, He deviseth, it says, Delight thyself also in the Lord, and He shall give thee the desires of thy heart. Let me ask you, if your heart is to do wicked, if your desire is to do wicked, and your delight is in wickedness, is God going to give it to you? No. But if you delight in the Lord, if you get delight, that word literally means to smear all over your face. What does that have to do with delight? Well, it's like when you eat something so good. You know, when you eat a dessert, a cake, or ice cream. You ever see a little kid when they get cake? What do? They smear it. Some of it goes in their mouth, some of it goes in their face. Why? That word delight means smearing all over your face. It means you're just enjoying it so much you don't care. It's all over your clothes, your hands, your face. What does that kid do when you give him cake? He delights in it. Like a little piggy pig. When you give that little piglet some food, what does a little piggy do? Right? It attacks that food and sticks its face in the mud and does not care. What is that pig doing? It's delighting in it. It's rolling around in it. It's oinking, wink, wink, wink in it. It's delighting like a child with its chocolate cake and ice cream. Fruit smoothie. What time is it? You know what I'm doing? Making you hungry. It's 12:02 p.m. I'm 2 minutes overtime. Let me spend the next 3 minutes talking about food. Right? So what are you going to do? What are you going to do when you're really hungry? When you really want something to eat? And then finally, at last, you finally get the desire of your heart. You delight in it. If I keep preaching long enough, and I keep talking about food enough, what is the desire of your heart going to be? It's going to be food. It's not going to be preaching anymore, right? I can see the shifting. There's already shifting taking place. Before you were delighting in the preaching, now you're delighting in that food. You're expecting that food. What is happening? Your desire is going towards that. If you delight in the Lord, and you meet with Him in all humility and expectation, and you come and meet in a place with Him, what is God going to do? As you delight in the Lord, what is He going to give you? He's going to give you a new desire. How are you going to know God's will? Because when you delight in the Lord, God is going to give you a new desire. And guess what that means? You get to do whatever you desire. Why? Because your desire is going to be in the Lord. So let's break it down real quick. Let's say that you are going to college and you don't know what to do. You don't know if you should be an accountant or a police officer or what. You don't know. The Bible doesn't say what you should do, what you should go to college for. So you delight in the Lord. He will give you the desire, and then here's what you do. You do what you want to do. You do what you want. It's not often from the pulpit the preacher says, do what you want to do. Yes, I'm not going to tell you that very often. But in this case, if you're delighting in the Lord, and what you want is, of course, in the Lord, it's not a sin. Okay, you don't want to be a drug pusher, sorry. But I delight in it. You said do what I want to do. No. Delight is in the Lord. And that He will give you the desire. And that's how you know God's will. You follow that desire that He gives you because you're delighting in Him.